Thank you for joining us this evening for the April 15, 2025 Monte Sereno regular city council meeting. Before the meeting is called to order, I would like to point out a few house rules to assist council members, staff, and members of the public to successfully participate in this meeting. For tonight's meeting, Zoom is being used to allow public participation with this regular city council meeting. For those using Zoom to participate, there are two icons, chat and raise hand. Please use chat only to report technical issues, such as being unable to hear a council member speaking. Please use raised hand to be recognized by the mayor and unable to speak to the council. Only attendees using the Zoom application can use the raise hand option to comment. Participants calling in from a telephone will only be able to listen and cannot provide feedback or public comment. Lastly, when we're not all in the same room, all votes must be taken by roll call.
Thank you very much. I would like to call this meeting to order and start off with a roll call, please.
Councilmember Megachuk,
Present.
Councilmember Wolsheimer,
Present.
Councilmember Shannon, here, Vice Mayor Lahi,
Here.
and Mayor Craig.
Here. Okay, I would like everyone to please stand and we'll have the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, so for the orders of the day, we need to make a couple of changes. So I would like to propose that we move our announcements to the next item of business. I'm sorry, move oral communications to the next order of business. And then would also like to move item number 5. Did Jariah come online? Okay, we'd like to move item number 5 after that, and then move item number 4 out of the consent calendar. And we'll just put,
So item number 5?
is it 5?
No, I think you.
No,
mean
I'm sorry.
6.
I thought it was
6.
6, item number 6.
Yeah.
Thank you. So can I have a motion to do that, please?
So moved.
Okay,
Just let's clarify the motion. Is it to move, item,
we're going to move oral communications next. And then we're going to also then take item 6 and make that after oral communications. And then we're going to go into, we're going to pull item 4 out of the consent calendar.
okay,
Okay,
on a second?
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And so move. So at this point, Brian, would you like to introduce our first announcement?
Yes, I believe Carl Gardino is here and he wants to say something.
Come on up, Carl.
Carl lives just down the street on Rose Avenue and he hosts many events and I think he's a huge proponent of Monte Sereno. And it's really nice of Carl and his family to be putting Monte Sereno on the regional map because people now know who Monte Sereno is and where we are.
Councilmember Makachuk, thank you for being so gracious. Mayor Craig and members of the council, it's an honor to be here this evening. Again, my name's Carl Gardino. My wife Leslie and our 3 children live down the street at 16060 Rose Avenue. And I'm here this evening as a private citizen to invite you to a community charity walk and run on Saturday morning, June 28th. This will be the 5th anniversary of our Stars and Strides community run to benefit the life-saving work of the Valley Health Foundation, which supports our 4 public hospitals and 14 healthcare clinics. More than 1 million of our fellow Santa Clara County residents a year are treated at one of those facilities. 9 out of 10 are not nearly as financially fortunate as most of us who get to call Monte Sereno home. The goal this year is to bring together 3,000 paid participants for our 5K run and walk, our 10K run, and our kids fun run. And with our very generous branded sponsors, including my employer, Toronto Wireless, as one of the two branded co-title sponsors. If we achieve our goal with registration, we'll be able to write a donation to Valley Health Foundation of $300,000 this year, bringing our 5-year total to $1.5 million, again, for the amazing work they do. So I'm here for 3 reasons. One, to encourage you in your busy lives, you and your family, to consider signing up and joining us on race morning. If you're traveling that day, please know we have a virtual participation option. 2, in the vast networks that you have, both here in our city as well as in the broader community, if you feel putting the word out to your constituents and friends would help, we would love it. And then 3, if there's any way that our city could get the word out as well. I want to thank you again. Living in this community with the great public service that we have and public safety officers has been an honor for the Guardino family these last 13 years. So if it's okay, I'd like to pass around the information on our 5th annual Stars and Strides run. And again, my appreciation. My goal is to get over to that town next door to us for their public comment period if I have a chance.
Well, we'll let you get going.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing this over to us tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Craig. Thank you all. May I?
Thank you for everything you do, Rob.
Yes.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak for oral communications? Again, up to 3 minutes on any item that is not on the agenda. Seeing none, nobody online? Great, then we are going to move to item number 6. And item number 6 is a redo of a proclamation declaring support for the efforts to provide childcare in Santa Clara County. And I would like to thank Councilmember Lisa and thank you for taking the time to write this up and redo it and make it so that it really meets the needs of our city.
Oh,
Sure,
thank you.
sure appreciate all of your work on that.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to.
Yeah. So I understand that Jariah is also back with us online, and I wanted to give her an opportunity to say a little presentation on what this proclamation is about. If she would like to speak.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Mayor and Honorable City Council. Thank you again for, reworking the resolution, or I'm sorry, the proclamation to your specifications for your city. I really do appreciate the robust conversation we had last time, and I really appreciate all the thought and carefulness you put into rewriting it. I fully support it, and I really hope that you all pass it this evening. And we all know the benefits of childcare. 0 to 5 is a critical time in a child's life for their own brain development, for their social emotional learning. And studies show time and time again that childcare, when given to children, oh, sorry, my cat wants to say hi too. They have increased likelihood of going to college, better social emotional learning outcomes, and also have more opportunities as a child to learn more about their own emotional self as they interact with other children. And so, speaking in strong support, I want to keep my remarks short since I know you have other things this evening. So thank you so much again, and I'm here to answer any questions as well you may have.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions for Jariah? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to open this up for public comment. Anybody in the chamber wishing to speak on this item? So this is a proclamation that we are promoting tonight for the Council for a Strong America. Issued a report that talks about the shortage of childcare in the United States and the impact that it has on the various communities around Santa Clara County. Okay, seeing nobody in chamber, is there anybody online who wishes to speak? Seeing nobody online, I would like to see if any council members would like to make a comment or put forth a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we pass the proclamation.
And we have a second. And all in favor of passing this proclamation, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, we have a 5-0 vote. And again, Jariah, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention, and good luck with all of your efforts to really help get more childcare going inside of Santa Clara County.
Thank you all so much, and I'll reach out with invitations. We're going to have a celebration in June on Children's Day, so I hope that you all can join us as well. So thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so with that, we are going to go to presentations, and we have our excellent Los Gatos Monte Sereno Police Department here tonight to give us their semi-annual report.
I'm hoping it will appear
Yes.
It will.
on the screen.
You gotta wave your hand correctly.
I usually bring just in case, but I went on the website and I saw I was on there, so I felt reasonably confident.
Presentation is ready.
There it is.
Okay, all right. Well, as you all know, because you've met me before, I am not Chief Field. However, I have no doubt, knowing her work ethic, that she is probably watching from Hawaii, so
Nice.
Of course.
I will do my best with her on vacation. Let's go to the first slide. I will also say on a personal note that I'm gonna try really hard for the next one of these, that we're a little bit closer to the date that we're talking about, because I find it difficult when I want to talk about things that are happening right now that we're going back in time. So bear with me, this is going to be covering July through December of 2024. During that time period, we had, in terms of new hires, we had 2 police officers and 1 police officer recruit. The new police officers included an entry-level police officer as well as a lateral from the Pacific Grove Police Department. The lateral was sworn in on December 9th, and the entry-level graduated the academy in August, and he was sworn in shortly thereafter. And they are both 10-8, as we like to say, so they're on the field solo and both doing wonderfully. We do have 1 person in the academy that started, he was an entry-level hire in December, and he's due to graduate in June. So we're very excited as we get closer to that. 1 new dispatcher, new in quotes, because she actually was one of our records specialists. On a personal note, she was actually a correctional officer for me at the sheriff's office years ago. So it was very fun to come here and have a friend that I knew. So she is still in training, doing really well as a dispatcher, and they couldn't tell me exactly when she was going to be done, but they assured me it's going to be very soon, which will put our dispatch up to full staff at 8, which is also very exciting. We did have 2 promotions that happened shortly after I started, 1 corporal and 1 sergeant. They're actually in that picture, I think. One of them is, maybe both, just one. No, they're both there next to me. One of them is Sergeant Taylor, who works on night shift. And the other one is Corporal Macy Delgado, who works on day shift. So those are the people and names behind those numbers. Next slide. Efficiencies and improvements. Okay, so another thing that myself and my counterpart, Clint Tata, got into shortly after I came here, I started in June, as you may remember, was to look at the shift schedules that we had and identify that maybe we could do a little bit better, both in terms of how we were applying our workforce and lessening the overtime that was incurred by the previous schedules. So the way that this happened for dispatch is they used to be on straight 12-hour shifts. Along with those 12-hour shifts, they had mandatory built-in overtime. And this was largely in part to a staffing shortage, which again, thankfully, we no longer have. And it also meant that oftentimes you only had 1 dispatcher working by themselves at any one time. I myself am not a dispatcher. However, I have a great appreciation for what they do, as I'm sure you all do. God forbid that you call 911 and need help. So certainly having 1 person, while they are excellent multitaskers, answering the 911 call, dispatching the units, doing all of that at the same time is not ideal. It can be done. And thankfully with the change in the schedule and the increased staffing, we now almost always have 2 people, so that the multitasking is much lessened, which in an emergency situation is certainly ideal. So the change with the increased staffing lessened the built-in overtime. And now with the exception of 4 hours occasionally during non-peak hours, we always have 2 dispatchers at least working at any one time. So that was how their schedule changed. The way that patrol changed, and I feel very proud of this one, is when I first came here, the shifts, as you may or may not know, were 12 hours and 40 minutes. It was 12 point something. And when I first came, I honestly thought that somebody was a new person, that they were messing with me, because I've never in my life heard of a shift like this. And doing the time cards and the overtime was a little bit of a nightmare. Almost everybody messed them up all the time. And so I changed that with the support of my wonderful chief. And now we're on straight 12-hour shifts for patrol as well, which also lessened significantly the built-in overtime, which was a cost savings, which I know that we're all in favor of. And was so much easier for time card coding. And so we have the 12-hour shifts now, 2 sides of the week. So you either work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every other Thursday, or every other Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then nights and days are the same. And then we actually have swing shifts that are 4-day, 10 hours, which our canine handler, which we'll get to later in the presentation, is assigned to right now. And then as we get our staffing up to full numbers, we'll eventually be able to have 4 individuals working a swing shift, which will complement both the day and night shifts. Electronic citations. So we have what we call e-sites here now, something that was very familiar where I came from my previous agency, but is a little bit newer here. It's a company called Crossroads, and we are able to do collision reporting and electronic citations. It looks kind of like a big cell phone, essentially. Though some of the people have bigger hands, we've been able to get them iPads, which has made their life a little bit easier. And we are issuing electronic citations to vehicles. And again, the auto collision reporting is also done with that same company. E-filing with the district attorney's office is also something that happened in this period of time, which lessened the workload on the court officer, because as opposed to having to drive all the cases physically to downtown San Jose for giving them to the district attorney's office, now thanks to modern technology, we have e-filing where they can just be electronically sent. And so that is obviously much better for checks and balances, and lessens, again, the workload on the court officer not having to physically drive there. So that was also very exciting. Let's see, increased financial support from the Los Gatos Monte Sereno Police Foundation. As most of you know, the Police Foundation helps provide us additional equipment and training that we would not otherwise be able to have through other means, and helps us with community outreach events such as National Night Out in the Community Police Academy that a former mayor that sat here in this room may or may not be enrolled in right now. And for those of you that have not participated, I highly recommend it. It is an 8-week program. And again, I believe we have 2 more weeks until this one that we're doing right now, that is not in this time period, is complete. But it is an amazing program. And I think a lot of times the people go through it and then they tell their friends, and then they come because they heard such good things about the previous one. Next slide. All right, so in no particular order, we do have pictures here from National Night Out. I believe that's top left. And then let's see, bottom left was the Monte Sereno picnic. And then bottom right was our Police Foundation lunch, the awards. And then these 2 individuals were from the Dick's Community Towing. And they were honored, I believe, because my understanding is they had stored evidence for us for a very long time, which is kind of a difficult thing for tow yards because, as you know, space equates to money. So they're a really good community partner, and we acknowledge and thank them. And then Operation Care, which I've been working on getting the acronym correct all day because we had a different operation where I came from previously and my brain doesn't want to say it, but it's been going on for a long time. So you all are probably very familiar with it, but I love this program. And for anybody watching on Zoom that doesn't know, our dispatchers, they call members of the community that are older that may live alone, and they check on them and they make sure that they're okay. And they just have conversations with them. And I just think it's a great program. So that top right is a picture to represent that. Next slide. So these are the statistics. As you can see on the left, we have the calls for service, and on the right, we have the proactive incidents. The numbers are pretty consistent. The numbers for December are slightly higher as more people generally are on vacation for the holidays, and so the vacation house checks go up. And so that kind of accounts for the numbers going up just slightly. You'll also see that when we do this again in a few months for January, same reason. And then priority 1, priority 2, priority 3 calls. The difference between the priorities being priority 1, maybe something active, violent, something to that effect. Priority 2 being something cold, as in, you know, the person that did it, maybe a cold residential burglary. They're not there anymore, time's a little bit on your side. And then 3, maybe a nuisance call, something like dog barking, maybe an alarm. And so the response times there, I did want to point out that those response times are gleaned from not just Monte Sereno, they're based on the cumulative look at Monte Sereno and Los Gatos, because again, you are a little bit smaller. And so the statistic, the percentages may not be as accurate if we use just this small amount. And so we for that statistic, we look at both overall. So those are our overall response times to those calls. Next slide. Reported vehicle collisions. You'll note there's kind of a similarity: unsafe turning, failure to yield the right of way, unsafe turning, unsafe turning. As you all probably see in your daily lives, we're seeing this commonality amongst drivers of inattention, whether it be often that they're on their phones, or that people, even though COVID has been a while back, you know, they're still kind of adjusting to the idea of driving so much and driving to work and so forth. And unfortunately, people are not paying as much attention as they should. And so often the common denominator of the inattention or the split attention seems to kind of be the common denominator for the collisions that we're seeing. Next slide. Emergency preparedness efforts. It just so happens that Sergeant Borromeo is here with us tonight. He actually works day shift normally, but because he is so fantastic, he agreed to cover for another sergeant on nights on vacation this week, which is quite hard for your internal clock when you're used to working days to work nights. But the active shooter training, the reason I bring him up is that right around when I started, he worked with the county fire department to conduct cross training for active shooter. They did it at Blossom Hill School. And then subsequently they did in-service training for the whole department. We did it at the Jewish Community Center, and we were all run through different scenarios to do with active shooter, which is something that we hope to never have to use. But if it should happen that we do, we definitely want to make sure that we are on our A game. And again, Sergeant Borromeo was one of the key people in making that happen. And it was excellent training. The Community Police Academy, we already discussed. Again, it is ongoing right now. We will have another one. But it is a fantastic resource to be able to bring community members in to see what we do in a different way than either maybe they thought that we did things or really never thought about in the first place. I find that it's a great way to change sometimes misperceptions about who the police are and what we do. And also to just expand people's imaginations on all the different things. You know, people sometimes pigeonhole, you know, law enforcement as we pull you over in our police cars, or, you know, we respond to alarm calls, or, you know, the high school kids, we take their alcohol away. And so to go through 8 weeks of this community academy and to be able to see the diversity of things that we do different than maybe what some people have in their minds, I think is really exciting, and it's a great opportunity for community outreach. Next slide.
If I may ask, how do you sign up for the police academy? Is that a?
The community academy, you go through our website.
Yes, enrollment's generally gonna be in the winter time, but we can make sure that that gets out to the council for dates and when that will happen.
Absolutely, we can.
What's it, a 1 day thing or 1 week?
It's every week for 8 weeks at night. Yeah. And again, you do have an alumni amongst you who's in it right now, who can definitely give you a firsthand opinion on how it's going. Okay, notable cases. All right, so as you know, we don't yet have flock in Monte Sereno, but I did look for a case where something happening in Monte Sereno was affected using the flock technology. And, you know, in the next one of these or the one after, I'm certainly going to have flock stories from Monte Sereno, thanks to all of your efforts. So the flock case I wanted to share with you was in July. A victim in the Via Pinto area fell victim to a phone scam where somebody had called and said that he was the individual's son and that he had been taken into custody and that he needed to be bailed out. And this is not just a Monte Sereno thing. This happens everywhere. Unfortunately, it's horrible. A courier arrived at the home and was given just over $16,000 for the bail. And the victim only knew the vehicle description that had come to take the money. So using that description, we were able to utilize the flock cameras that already exist in the area. And we were able to find the vehicle, identify the suspect, and get the car in a neighboring jurisdiction. The interesting piece of this was that it was I think an Uber driver. And so the, suspect that was involved actually was somewhat of a victim as well. And so these things are never quite as simple as they seem, but, again, for flock purposes, we were able just on a vehicle description and having a general area and a time, to find this car, whereas without that technology, we would have never been able to find it. And so I thought that, especially with looking towards the future of where we're going, it was a good story to share.
Did you get the money back?
For purposes of this story, I would like to say yes, but I did ask that and I said, oh, great. And I can tell them that we got all the money back. And I was like, I got the response of, well, so, in the future, I promise that we will have ones that have a full spectrum happy ending.
That's a pretty good one though, hiring an Uber driver to.
That's good.
I have heard of that before. Yeah, no, it's not good, but it does happen, unfortunately. I'm gonna skip property crime and come back to it and go with other. In August, officers were dispatched to Greenwood Lane regarding a female in her early 60s who had suffered from some memory issues pretty significantly. And she had been missing for about an hour by the time the call came in. The last known whereabouts and clothing description, we all were looking for this woman and we had a picture of her and we were all looking and using the drone to look in the area. Searching extensively, we had a command post, which Sergeant Borromeo was a part of. And we had Santa Clara County Search and Rescue that responded and entered the woman into the missing person system. Just after 6 p.m., she was located by family members that were helping the cause about a quarter mile from her home, but she was in a deep ravine. And when we went to that location, we had to utilize EMS and fire personnel because of how far down that she was to get her back. She did have minor scrapes and bruises, but was surprisingly otherwise okay. And did go to the hospital to get checked out, but it was a great case of utilizing allied agencies in the search and rescue, the fire department, as well as technology in terms of the aerial unmanned drones and bringing it all together to have a happy ending.
Yep.
Thankfully, where the woman was found. The reason I skipped property crime was I was thinking about it, and something that I've heard from all of you and from the community is that some people I think have a perception that maybe residential burglaries are increasing. And so for this particular talking point, I wanted to look at the statistics of how many residential burglaries were reported in this 6-month period versus the previous. And even though we're not talking about now, just to kind of show tracking where we are. And so for July through December, the period that we're talking about, there were 5 reported residential burglaries. January to June, the previous 6 months to that, there were 6. So pretty consistent. And then checking to date, what is this, April? So maybe like 4 months into the year. Right now we're at 3. So it seems as if we are pretty consistent. I would definitely not say that we are getting worse. The numbers don't support that. And so I did want to share that because sometimes I feel like perception is reality. And if that is something that's out there, I definitely want to allay that fear that we don't have anything to suggest that the numbers are rising, which is a good thing. Next slide. Okay, priorities and themes. So the Meliora assessment was done in the timeframe that we're talking about. I was familiar with Meliora because they had just completed an assessment at the sheriff's office when I came here, and so it's very familiar faces. For those that don't know, Meliora is a consulting group, and they look at your staffing and your processes and pretty much everything to do with how you do your daily job. And then they give you a multi-100-page report that says what things are doing well, what things could be improved, what things could be changed. And it's kind of a sky's the limit report. And so, you know, they suggested, of course, more staffing, more technology, you know, more supplies, changing the things around. And so not all of it are going to be able to do right out of the gate, but some smaller changes we were able to implement, and it did kind of support the direction that a lot of us were thinking of going. Because it's one thing to, for example, I oversee investigations. Think, gosh, I really think that we could use more detectives. But then when you have this professional group of mostly retired police chiefs that have worked all over the country that come in and look at what we're doing and objectively come in and say, oh gosh, you could really use more detectives. It's kind of validating, and they're impartial. And so that was the beauty of having that study done, was to have these individuals tell us, here's the things that we think you're doing really great. And here's the things that we think maybe you could do better. And here's a whole bunch of different ways from a little bit to a lot that you could accomplish these goals. And so that occurred in the time frame that we're talking about. Succession planning. We do have, unfortunately, a number of retirements, some that have occurred in this time period, right after I started. Actually, we had Detective Sergeant Hoyt, not the one currently, the previous one, Bill, for those of you that knew him, that retired just shortly after I started. And I am so thankful that I did get to meet him and work with him just for a couple of weeks, because he was quite a unique individual. But he retired, and then we had unrelated, the new Sergeant Hoyt slid in and is now our Detective Sergeant. We did have another sergeant retired during this time period. Trying to think if anybody else retired. We had a handful of retirements, and the succession planning piece is that we do project that there's going to be more. My counterpart, Clint Tata, of course, is going to be going at the end of the year. And we do have a handful of other sergeants that are right about that age that are probably going to be retiring soon. So we have spent much time talking about succession planning, looking towards the future and figuring out what the future looks like, whether we want to replace all the positions as they are or reconfigure things, again, taking the suggestions of the Meliora report as to how can we do things differently with these kind of vacancies and moving pieces. Captain, sergeant, corporal promotions. As we saw on the first slide, we did promote sergeant and a corporal. I was hired just a month before this period of time, so I'm not sure if the captain refers to me, but I'm going to say that it does. I was not promoted, I was brought over, but I am very happy to be here. Training and professional development, that applies to the fact that with our hiring efforts, we do have a number of younger individuals on the police force now that do need basic training. There is post-mandated training, police officer standards and training. It's the accreditation board for all police officers in the state of California. And by law, there are certain trainings that you need to have in order to be a police officer. And so since we do have some entry-level folks and some with less time on, we do need to get them through these trainings. And then just other trainings that are good to have, again, like the active shooter training that I mentioned, and specialized trainings to do with any number of specialties that people may feel drawn to do. The technology enhancements we already talked about, including the e-sites. And of course, in this period of time, we were having our conversations about moving towards Flock, though we did not occur in this period of time. That is going to be a huge technology enhancement that I look forward to talking about more in the future. Canine explosives and tracking is a interesting one because in the period of time that we're discussing, we did acquire a police canine. However, unfortunately, the canine did have some medical issues that were detected right out of the gate. I mean, within the first couple of days of getting the dog, the handler said, gosh, he looks a little thinner. And then he looked, when we were seeing videos of him before, and energy and just some tummy problems and so forth. So we put the dog, with the vet, and we did medicine and we did all these things. Long story short, the dog is now living its best life as a private citizen dog, hospicing, if you will. Ironically, the report from the family that has the dog seems healthier and happier now, not doing the work that it was doing before, just being able to, lay in the sun and relax and be happy. And so the business side of things, it hardly ever happens, but it does happen, which is why the fine print is in the contract. When you get a dog, a professional working dog, should something go wrong catastrophically, medically, as happened with this one, you are able to then get another dog, obviously at no cost, and the training and so forth. It's kind of a guarantee, which again, the majority of the time is not worth anything. It's just written on the paper. But every once in a while, I can think of maybe 2 or 3 over my career with different agencies. One had a brain tumor and so forth. It does happen, because just like people, they have issues. And so we are actively right now, again, not for purposes of this period of time, but right now today, in talks with the vendor. We've identified a female dog that likely will be our next dog, but we are still in the process of selecting the dog officially. So in this period of time, we selected a dog. Unfortunately, the dog ended up being retired, but it does happen, unfortunately. But dog is living its very best life now, I believe, as a resident of the city of San Jose currently. Next slide. It did seem significant to have a slide on flock, though I know I don't have to tell this group anything about it because we're all experts at this point. This was obviously something that was top of conversation during this period of time. And again, I do look forward to the great things that we have ahead utilizing the technology. I don't suspect we need to dig into that very much because I think we've spent quite a lot of time. So next slide. That is the end. Any questions for me?
Any questions for the captain? No, yes, sure.
I think I only have 4 or 5. I've always been curious about how you assign shifts. Because I imagine people don't want to work over the weekend necessarily, or night shifts. Is it voluntarily, or is it based on seniority?
All of the above. And actually, I think personally, the beauty of this job is that everybody has different lifestyles. So for me, when I first started, I was a canine handler early on in my career. I worked in the city of Millbrae, and I loved working nights because that was the most action I could get from my dog. I was single, I was young, I didn't have kids, I wasn't married. And I loved working nights. I worked it for, 7.5 years voluntarily, even when I didn't have to. And so everybody's lifestyles are different. Some people that do have kids, maybe, one spouse works during the day, one works during the night, and it works for childcare, to our earlier presentation. In answer to your question, though, we do have a shift bid process where people are able to sign up which side of the week they want to work. Maybe they want to work weekends, or they don't want to work weekends, days or nights. It is based on seniority. And if you are in the field training program and you've just gotten released, you would be administratively assigned by myself. And then generally one more time when you're still on probation, you would probably be administratively assigned, but after that, the world is your oyster and you can bid where you would like to go. And again, it's a good, I really like it because again, what's best for somebody is worse for somebody else. So everybody gets to go where they want. And then we do, after 2 times of being twice, right? After 2 times of being in the same place, we do ask that you bid somewhere else. So that way, even if you want to be on nights for your entire career, we get to see you at least for a couple of shift bids on the daytime.
Right, thank you. A comment on the number of burglaries. You said it's stable,
Relative.
sort of.
Yeah.
I would encourage maybe our city manager to get a hold of those numbers once they're available and publish them. Because when you talk to residents or read next door, which I try not to do, you would think that every other house is broken into once a week or so.
Yeah.
People really have the wrong perception of what's going on.
That's why I really wanted to share that statistic. I thought it was really important because you can't change that narrative without that information.
And I was wondering if you would like to comment on what happened in Los Gatos last Saturday, the sideshow.
Well,
We should try not to let that become a recurring event.
yes, that was my first experience with that here in this community, not over the course of my career, but here. On a personal note, I don't like them. I don't like them because I don't like, as much as, I'm sure we've all seen the videos, or God forbid in real life, as much as usually there's like the circle of people, it just takes one wrong turn and then, so I don't like anything about sideshows. The difficulty with them and how we control them. And again, I feel like this is the Sergeant Borromeo show, because we had this conversation last night and I told him after seeing that I want a plan that I want to have so that no matter who is working, we can have a framework of, this is how you handle it. And they offer trainings, honestly, on just handling these things. The difficulty is, especially in a community like ours, where there's so few people working comparatively, I'm sure you all saw how many motorcycles there were. It's difficult because if we send, say, 3 or 4 people into that, I don't know how many motorcycles there were, a lot, many more than 3 or 4. Motorcycles are very fast. They see the police coming in, then they take off, especially where they were in all different directions, driving crazy. And then, something that was somewhat contained is now crazy. They're speeding, God only knows what could happen. And so it's kind of a law of averages. It's, gosh, is it better to try and go in and break it up? Or is it better to kind of let it play out? There's no one right answer, unfortunately. I just, thankfully, from what I've been told after I saw this, we don't have that here very often. My understanding was that this particular one was linked to maybe a funeral. Yes, that happened in another location. So there was a reason for it. It wasn't just a weekend in Los Gatos. But irregardless, it is something that we're definitely keeping an eye on. And again, something that I want to have plans that are on file, accessible. So no matter what team is working, whether we have somebody like a Sergeant Borromeo who's dealt with it many times, or our newest supervisor, that everybody has the framework, because it is, if you've never dealt with it, it can be a lot. And we definitely want to make sure that not only my personnel, the chief's personnel, but the community can feel safe when these things happen. And I don't like them on a personal note. We're going to do everything we can that this does not become a normal reality for us.
Thank you. Question?
Yes.
And do you have a reserve force you can call?
What is that?
Do you have a reserve force you can call? I mean, like the fire department can call and the county fire departments when there's a fire. I mean, we have a small police force, relatively speaking. So if something like this comes up, can you call on adjacent cities to help you with police?
Yeah. So we do have reserves, very few, but I think what you're speaking about is allied agencies assisting.
Yeah.
And so, yes, we do have outside agencies that can come in, whether they be our local allied agencies or, the California Highway Patrol. And again, this goes to the plans of looking to the future and how we can best use our allied agencies. There's so many considerations on things like this. I've heard comments about, how come you don't know who it was? They have their faces covered. Oftentimes they don't have license plates on their motorcycles. And so it's sometimes very difficult to identify these individuals. And then depending on the locations that they're at, as you know, where they were, there's only so many ways in. And for instance, oftentimes, they're not lengthy. And so by the time the allied agencies get there, it's already done and they're gone. And so there is a lot of moving pieces with this, but yes, absolutely. Allied agencies, not just for this, for anything, are a force multiplier. And as often as they can come in and help us, we can go out and help them.
So you have existing agreements with the Highway Patrol or the city of Campbell or San Jose?
There are agreements in the county, mutual aid, that we can all help each other. But similar to if you run out of flour and you go to your neighbor and you ask for a cup of flour, it's the same thing. If Campbell needs help, they call our dispatch and we help them, and vice versa.
So there are informal agreements, but no real formal.
There's informal and formal. Yeah, the County Chiefs Association has agreements.
Thank you. Just one curiosity I had. On the vehicle collisions report, there was just four collisions. Two of them were in August and two of them were in November. Any particular thing happening in August and November? That you only had collisions in those 2 months?
I mean, if I gave you, I would be guessing, oh, school is starting and Thanksgiving. No, I really do think, if you look at, not even just here, you look at Los Gatos too, and really everywhere, but obviously those are our communities. The common denominator is the inattention. It's people that don't drive very much. It's people that are on the phone. People that maybe their head is somewhere else. That seems to be the really the common denominator is just, for everybody, when you're driving, you need to be 100% focused on driving.
Lisa?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, Brian?
I'll just make a comment. I think that the statistics are important, and I was going through the Los Gatos Annual Comprehensive Financial Report and the budget recently in the last 2 weeks. And there are some statistics in there that are related to the PD and what residents experience. And we don't have to talk about it now, but it would be good to see statistics in your report that essentially will roll into those numbers, because we would like to report, we're thinking about reporting those types of numbers to our residents. And I think that a lot of the value of living in Monte Sereno is that it's quiet, it's peaceful, it's safe, that sort of thing. So we want to be able to point people to some statistics. So just getting those aligned in the future would be a good thing. And we can talk offline.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's more specific ones, let's talk offline and we can definitely make sure to cover those.
Okay, I just have a couple of quick questions on and probably even more of a Los Gatos Monte Sereno type of a question. When you are talking about property crimes, are we seeing these coming from organized groups, and are they happening mostly during the day, or are these opportunities, somebody sees a garage door open and walks in and steals a bicycle or a tool or something? Is there any trends from the type of crimes we're having around here?
The answer is again, yes, it's all of those. Those are all kind of different MOs of crimes, all of which we see both here and in Los Gatos. We do still have the organized retail theft. I believe we just had one yesterday, the day before, I think it's Sephora. So we do have, it's funny, I think as two smaller cities down, I think we're like a microcosm of the rest of the Bay Area, because we have the same similar type of crimes, but just on a smaller, to your point, level. And so, yes, all of those are things that we're experiencing, not just in Los Gatos, but in Monte Sereno as well. And, we always tell people, do what you can to help yourself. So yes, leaving your garage open with your brand new, multi-$1,000 bike sitting out front. Not to say that I don't want to victim shame. You should be able to do that. Unfortunately, it's maybe not the safest thing to do. And so that's something that people can do, maybe close your garage if you're not out there. Or if, you've just purchased a multi-$1,000 bike or something that somebody would want to steal, maybe put it on the side or behind a fence or a gate, or put a cover over it or something. So, there are things that people can do. And that's good advice for any of us. But yes, all of those things are MOs that we have seen.
Okay, in regards to I'll call it the rollback of Prop 47, are you seeing any kind of impact on the type of crimes that are being committed? Fewer, or they're not going after the little stuff, they're just saying, if we're gonna do this, we're going to go for the bigger fish out there?
I think we would have to look at the statistics. I would just be theorizing. I haven't seen any marked change per se. But I do think with a little bit more time, I think it would be interesting to look and see what the statistics say.
Okay, yeah, I'm kind of curious, because there was a lot of pushback People were like, Prop 47, that just, made it open season for everybody to get burglarized or whatever, and I'm just curious if you've seen anything since then rolling these back a little bit. And my last question is, and you don't have to answer if it divulges any strategy, but there's so many ways that you can track objects now. I mean, I could take an air tag and put it on a bike, for example, and if I were to notice that my bike is missing and I do Find My on my iPhone and I see it going north on Winchester and I call the PD, are they able to do anything these days, or is it still, well, we're just basically taking theft reports?
No, we haven't gotten to that point yet. No, I mean, if you or anybody, it doesn't matter that you're all here, if anybody called us and said, somebody stole XYZ, I have an air tag and I can see it going, whatever direction on whatever street, whether it was in our jurisdiction or whether we called, I think you mentioned the highway, the CHP or whomever, we would put, all of our resources towards finding it.
Okay, that's great to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We like solving
It's good
crime.
for us to be able to tell our residents that, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
because I know a lot of places will be like, what,
We're not to that point yet.
we're not. to
Let's
that
hope we don't
point
ever
yet,
get there.
So, just at least know that just a quick story. So my iPhone was lost, never returned. 4 days later, it was in China. That's,
Wow,
it doesn't take long anymore.
wow.
So just curious.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was a shame that it was not returned to me. So any other questions, comments? I would just like to say again, thank you for all of your work and your efforts. And it's just great to know that you guys are watching over our city.
Absolutely. Happy to do so.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that now brings us to written communications. Do we have any written communications to report out?
Nothing new.
Okay, then we will go to the consent calendar. We've already pulled item number 4, so that leaves items 2 and 3. Would any other council members like to pull an item from the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none, I will open it for public comment. Is there anybody in chambers wishing to speak on any item on the consent calendar? Or is there anybody online?
No hands are raised.
Okay, any discussion necessary? If not, I'll look for a motion to bring items 2 and 3. Yes,
I'll make a motion to approve item 2.
for item number 2. Okay,
Second.
and we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so for item number 3, can I have a motion, please?
Move to approve item 3.
Second. We have 2 seconds, so we'll let Loisy pick.
I heard, Councilmember Shannon.
And we'll, sorry, neighbor, next time.
I didn't hear you. Sorry.
And we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Yes. Councilmember Makachuk,
Abstain.
Councilmember Olsheimer,
Yes.
Councilmember Shannon,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lahey,
Yes.
and Mayor Craig.
Yes,
Motion carries 4-1.
all right, very good. So that now takes us to item number 4. And so this is the approval of a resolution authorizing the interim city manager to execute a 5-year police services agreement starting July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2030 with the town of Los Gatos. So I will turn it over to Diana, who I'm sure has an excellent staff report for us.
Thank you very much. The town of Los Gatos has provided law enforcement services to the city of Monte Sereno since 1995. The current agreement will expire on June 30th of this year. The city council had established an ad hoc committee for the purpose of working with city staff to determine the police needs of the city and the appropriate terms for the new contract. City and town staff have worked on the terms of the new agreement. These were discussed in detail at a special meeting on April 1st. And there were two comments or two directions from council that were received at that meeting. And those responses are detailed in the staff report. If there are any questions on the staff report or the terms, I'm happy to answer those. Otherwise, that concludes the staff report.
Okay, very good. And then I would like to turn it over to one of the members of our police ad hoc committee who worked on looking at the contract and making a lot of changes on it. So Brian, I know you've been taking a look at numbers and wanted to give us a little summary of them.
Sure, thank you. What we did was looked at some of the numbers in the budget for 24-25 that Los Gatos put together, and then also in terms of the agreement that was put in place. And I believe that there was some numbers that were distributed to council, and there's one available in chambers if anyone wants to see the numbers. But I could just walk you through those, okay, briefly. And what you'll see is that if you look at the expenses that are there, 22,021,478. That ties into the numbers that are in the staff report, but you have to take the program revenues out of 3.3 million. So it'll give you around 18.7 million, but then you have to add in Monte Sereno contribution of around 1.25 to get the total cost of policing, not 22 million, but really it's $20 million. So if you take the $20 million and divide it by the 60 FTEs that are in the police and in there, and I'm going straight out of their budget that was in the approved Town of Los Gatos budget, which is a fairly extensive and detailed document. And I think there's around 50 pages on the police department in there. There's 60 FTEs, so you get around $332,000 per FTE per year. So that's fully loaded cost inside the PD for everything, because they load overhead, et cetera, into the PD budget. So if you take 332K and the offer to Monte Sereno is 1.458 million, it works out to around 4.4 FTEs. And in terms of the number of FTEs, they're saying that they will provide services for 2 FTEs, not 4.4, but there's other services that are included in there. My sense is that if we're paying for 4.4 FTEs, we should have something describing that level of service, not 2 FTEs that are referenced in the agreement. So that's kind of one of my first points in the financial analysis. And then the second part, I started with the 1.458 million, and that's going to increase by the CPI plus 2%. So I just ballparked it. If you say we're going to have 2.5% inflation a year, which is, I think, perhaps a little low. Definitely a little low in the year ended June 30th, 2026, because I think we'll have some tariffs in there, some inflation with tariffs, but maybe that's just me. So if you say 3.5% or whatever, you're looking at around between 4.5% and 5.5% over the next 5 years. And I escalated it up. And so the total contract value over 5 years is going to be approximately $8 million. It's going to go from 1.458 to 1.755 million, rough numbers. So this is a big part of our budget. And I just wanted everyone to understand what the numbers are, because 2 of us are in a 4-year term here, and 3 of us have another 1.5 years to go in their terms. So this is gonna be a legacy contract to whoever, you know, is sitting at the dais. In a few years from now, you gotta think, I don't wanna have someone at the dais thinking, you know, what was that council thinking when they approved this? You know, where were their heads? Couldn't they see into the future? So I just wanna make sure that we've all got our heads up and we understand what's going on. The other thing that I didn't map out, but we're being asked for 1.458 million plus our COPS grant. And I think, Councilmember Alahi, Vice Mayor Alahi said at the last meeting, you know, can't you do something? And I think what we should counter with or ask for is the 1.458 less the COPS grant. So 1.358, and then have that escalating. I think that makes more sense. It's more approved. Now, I'm not saying that we should get the grant, but the PD should be able to allocate and to spend it because they're obviously closest to it, but and what the terms of the COPS grant are. But to have it 1.458 plus the 100K, to me seems a little high. It's understating by $500,000, you know, what it is. So I just wanted to put that bit of analysis together for council to understand. I believe that the Los Gatos PD does excellent work. I think it's a safe community here in Monte Sereno. And I don't mean to diminish that at all, but I just believe that what we're being asked for is a little more than what it should be. So those are some of my thoughts and comments.
Okay. All right.
And sorry, we are on the ad hoc committee and we went through this today. So,
Okay, so we're still in the asking questions of staff. But I wanted Brian to report on his numbers because he went into a lot more depth on them. And in case you wanted to use that information to factor into your questions to staff. So are there any other questions for staff? Yes.
I think,
Oh,
go ahead.
No, Lisa, go ahead. Please.
Just in regards to, Councilmember Mekachuk's comments about the FTEs, the full-time equivalents, I was under the impression that this December 2 FTEs didn't really translate to actual people who are sort of, you know, Monte Sereno's people, because it's all one big group. And I didn't view it as they are hiring 2 additional staff people or officers because of Monte Sereno. I think it's just they have kind of 2 additional because of the size that we add to Los Gatos. But of course, there's dispatch services, there's the administrative services, there's all kinds of other services. So I was not under the impression that we are paying for 2 additional people. I think we're getting more than 2 additional people, if that makes sense. So I guess my question to you is, we're not specifically paying for 2 additional officers. Is that correct?
So the contract cost was based on the fully loaded rate for 2 officers. That's 10% of the other services, similar to what you mentioned, the dispatch services, record services, department administration, 10% of those total costs in the other categories. So that is what the base rate was calculated on. That base rate was calculated about a year ago and does not cover the full costs of those services that Los Gatos bears today. However, due to other concessions that we've agreed to in the contract, the town has agreed to honor that rate that was provided to us a year ago, which is about 92% recovery of today's costs of those categories. The services that are provided in the contract are not specified as two full-time equivalent officers. It is all of the law enforcement services that are provided to the town, the same services are provided to the district. So it is, the services provided are not based on two officers.
And so I just wanted to add, as, because this is one of the things that we talked about with the town. If Monte Sereno did not enter into this contract, it wouldn't be like they would reduce their force by 2 police officers. And they probably did not hire 2 police officers when the contract was first put together in 1995. We used the existing police force at the time. It was just that they were now going through Monte Sereno as they were going between the north and the south and the west parts of Los Gatos. Is really kind of how the arrangement just kind of moved over time. And initially, we started off with a commitment that there would be 80 hours of patrol time in the city, but that really wasn't a measurable metric. And so and the captain can help me out here, as the contract has been restructured and as the police department has changed over time, we are now a part of the Los Gatos Monte Sereno Police Patrol area. We're not Monte Sereno. We don't pull a flag down every time they cross into our border. It's just, we are part of District
2 of the 3.
2 of the 3. Thank you. I keep wanting to say 2. So that's kind of, you know, I just didn't want us to get too hung up on the full-time employees, because
Yeah, that's
there
my
aren't
understanding.
2 employees that, you know, stay inside of Monte Sereno the whole time.
So based upon, I don't know if I can actually ask a question of Councilmember
So
Makachek.
I think Brian,
Based upon what Diana just said about how it's calculated, how numbers are calculated, do you agree that the number that we're looking at is about the, 2 officers plus 10% of all the other costs?
The short answer is no. So, and I wanted to get to the section in the agreement, and let me just read it for you. The base rate includes an overhead rate built into the annual base amount and includes, but is not limited to, personnel costs of 2 FTE officers, supplies, materials, facilities, and vehicle costs. And then it talks about administrative time for the town attorney, town manager's office, etc. My point isn't to change the level of service, but let's realize that we're talking about around over 4 FTEs on an equivalent basis. So, agreements you don't need to have an explicit agreement when everything goes well. It's only when things aren't going so well. And you can't hold someone accountable or a body accountable for something if you don't have the metrics in there. Like what are we really buying? If we're buying 4.4 FTEs, let's not write 2 in there, because I think it's not accurate. Let's increase it to something that's more accurate. That's my point. I'm not asking to change the level of service or anything, just like, really? Like, it's not 2 FTEs, it's like more in the order of 4. So, that's kind of where I'm at.
okay. Let's see. Councilmember Lottie?
I guess we're doing questioning. There were some things that were changed in this agreement. I think one had to do with, my concern, obviously, the fees that are being charged, Monte Sereno is not commensurate with the proportional services that are required by Monte Sereno, because Los Gatos is, much bigger and they're commercial and they're everything else, and they're motorcycle gangs also now, I understand. So we don't have that issue. My question is, they reduce the time. My question is the overtime. If something bad happens in Monte Sereno, the investigation that can go on for weeks and months, like, one incident, they went on for, I don't know, was it 30 FTEs or how many months was, but certainly it was more than the 300 hours that they were giving us before. Now it's, I think, 600 or 700 hours. That limit isn't really an issue because we'll be spending a lot of money on these things. That needs to be, we shouldn't have that such a minimal number that we have in there right now. I think we had 900 hours before, or was there no limit on that before, on emergency measures?
That's correct. The current agreement is, if there's any incident or series of related incidents that exceed 900 hours of their staff time instead within 1 year, then the city would pay the cost over
Right, so that,
320, and that 900 threshold has reduced to 700.
so that probably should be increased, from 900 to going down 700, because there is times that, we're not getting 4 FTEs in Monte Sereno. There's times that also pursuing other things elsewhere, but there's probably a few times when they have, I mean, if you look at the number of incidents in Monte Sereno compared to Los Gatos, I don't know if it's 4 to whatever, what is the total, so if I could ask you what the total police force is right now? Los Gatos, Monte Sereno, what, the total of staff, I guess, is the right way to ask, including the specialists and everybody else.
Just the sworn or the sworn and the civilian?
I'm sorry,
Do you mean just the sworn law enforcement or the entire
the
department?
entire part.
No, we're supposed to be at 60, so we're just under that
So
probably.
60, so 4 out of 60 would be about 15%, I guess. So, so numbers need to be looked at, I suppose. So those are a couple of issues. I also saw that they took off the cap on use of emergency services. They had that in the last contract. It's not there anymore, so they took that off. Is there anything else they took out or changed?
So there were several changes, since the only change since the special meeting, on April 1st is they increased their proposal at that time was to reduce the hours for the critical incidents to 640. And then based on the council's direction of trying to increase that back up, they had increased it to 700. So that's the only change in the agreement tonight that was not there 2 weeks ago.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, the budget, you gave the list of budgets, Los Gatos is a $22 million budget. Sereno only has an $8 million budget. Is the population of Sereno that much different from Los Gatos? Do you have the numbers on that by chance? Oh, yeah, you got the option right there. Saratoga is 29,000 and Los Gatos is 32,000. So even though Saratoga is almost as much as Los Gatos and they have commercial and everything else, why is their cost so comparatively, 1/3 of what Los Gatos is spending? Is there an alternate we need to explore? Is that they have a sheriff helping them out?
Saratoga contracts with the sheriff,
And
yes.
then they also have their own service contract with somebody else, private security or not?
I'm not aware that Saratoga does, Los Altos does.
Santos has 3 million and they have about 4 times our population. So Portola Valley has twice our population and their numbers are a little bit more, but not twice as much as ours.
Portola Valley's has actually gone up. That one's a little bit older.
Okay.
They're at about 2.2 million now.
2.2.
All the contracts for the San Mateo County Sheriff, they all went
They're
up
all,
last
these guys
year.
are all sheriffs
Portola Valley is, yeah.
Yeah, Portola Valley is.
and Los Altos,
No.
they have their own police force or
They're
Los
Santa
Altos
Clara
is
County Sheriff.
Santa Clara County
they're
Sheriff,
also sheriff.
yeah, different counties.
Or Los Altos is Santa Clara County Sheriff.
Santa Clara, yeah. Portola Valley is San Mateo Sheriff.
Portola Valley is Santa Clara Sheriff. Okay, thank you. So there's significant difference. I don't know if the sheriff here would give us which charge is less or more, and there's always the question of services. These guys do excellent service and you gotta pay for that. But it is, it's an amazing amount of difference. Anyway,
Yes, Councilmember Wilson.
No, I didn't have a question. No, I think I have a question.
Oh. I'll make a comment. Oh, Henry, were you gonna say something?
Okay,
No,
Oh,
we were still in the question asking session.
Yeah.
And I think that was over.
Okay,
I thought it was all.
I think we're at least done with asking questions to staff and things like that. So at this time, I wanted to open it up for public comment. And is there anybody in chamber who would like to speak about this agenda item? Okay, and seeing nobody stepping up,
Okay, I'll set it up.
okay, we gotta take her.
You gotta take her. Yeah, somebody's gotta talk. I'm very pleased with the service from the Los Gatos Monte Sereno Police Department. My name is Jennifer Crock. I live on Lexington Drive. I think if the sheriff is cheaper, I don't think that's necessarily better. You can always get something cheaper on Amazon, but it may not be the quality that you would get buying direct from the shop that you're actually buying from. So I just don't think that, while cost I realize is an issue, I don't think that, comparing the sheriff's department that is, I don't know how many miles, the sheriff's department covers. I think comparing the sheriff's department to the Los Gatos Monte Sereno department is kind of apples to oranges. So I just wouldn't go there. And I hope that we can create a contract that will be acceptable to both cities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have anybody online wishing to speak?
No other hands are raised.
Okay, so at that point, I will bring it back to council and open it up for discussion and motions or suggestions on or changes that they would like to see. All options are on the table. Councilmember McIntyre.
So I would vote in favor of this contract with two amendments. The first one would be to change the wording to say at least 3.5, the cost is based on at least 3.5 FTEs, which I think is, okay, that's acceptable. And then the other is to change the wording on the COPS grant.
Okay,
And not include the COPS grant, not 1.458. But other than that, I'm good with everything. So
so
Turn that into
you
a
want to
motion.
reduce the cost of the contract by $100,000?
that is correct.
Okay,
And say that they're gonna provide the cost is based on at least 3.5 FTEs.
okay. All right. Yes, Councilmember Shannon.
I feel like with this contract, that it was already pretty thoroughly negotiated some time back. When it was presented to me, I felt like it was, with how it was presented to me, that it was fair. It's, of course, a lot more expensive than our old contract, but I think our old contract, we were getting a bit of a bargain. So I'm not surprised by this dollar amount. I'm not super concerned about the FTE language because I think we're getting the services that we need in that, what was all just described, that we're all kind of this one big jurisdiction and we get the services that are needed as part of group 2, section 2, whatever we are. So I'm okay with the contract, the way it's worded now. I appreciate that there was a concession made about the number of hours, if there's an investigation, and I'm okay with the contract the way it is written right now.
In that case, I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the interim city manager to execute the 5-year police services agreement as is, without modifications.
Okay, Councilmember Lahti, you look like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I think the FTE language would be helpful, but I would like to save the city $100,000 on the COPS grant that we're paying every year. Since the cameras are going to provide a lot of service that is not commensurate with policing service in a sense. It's a good substitution. And I'd like to reduce the amount by $100,000 just to cover whatever the COPS grant is. Other than that, I think we can live with the contract.
Okay. So I have a couple of things I wanted to say about this, and then hopefully we will get a second and an enthusiastic vote on the contract. So I guess I'll start off by saying that I don't think that there are any more concessions that Los Gatos is willing to give. I did have a meeting with the town manager before the meeting today and had mentioned some of the concerns from various council members. And he said, well, that's where I'm at. We've already decided to eat the costs that we should be putting in, but we're not gonna do that this year. We want this to be a partnership. You're a part of us in terms of our police services, our community amenities like the park and the library. Your residents come in and shop at our stores, they eat in our restaurants. And anything that we give our residents, you will have. You will have police services, you will have rescue services, you will have a SWAT team if you need one, and you'll have an armored bulletproof vehicle driving down our streets if we need one. So all of the resources, or as they say, the full faith and credit of the town of Los Gatos is at our disposal. We are currently paying over $1.2 million. So what we're going from and to, and this was actually skipping one of the cost of one of the yearly cost increases, we're basically going to increase about 8% over our existing contract. Whereas normally we would have a normal automatic bump of 6%. We're almost at that same point. When I look at this contract and I think about what the needs of the residents of Monte Sereno are and what they want a police department that will be at their house in 5 minutes when they pick up the phone and make a phone call. They want to know that if a burglary occurs at their residence, that you will have a police officer and a detective or both coming out to your house and checking the neighborhood, reviewing all of the other security footage that's possibly available, that they'll have the technology and will actually use it to go to flock cameras and find the people who have taken it, hopefully recover whatever has been taken from their house, but at a minimum that an arrest will be made and hopefully deter other people from coming to our city and burglarizing us. And I think we get all that. And I think, as I mentioned the last time, yeah, we could probably grind them down out of another $100,000. But is that really the kind of partnership that we want to have with the town? I mean, I know that they don't want to lose this contract. Because that's, a nice chunk of money for them to have. But we have a motion on the table. I'll be looking for it, but that's kind of my 2 cents is that we could probably get that $100,000 if it's really that important to us. But they've already said no. We've already asked them. And do we want to just have the same answer come back and we'll have this meeting again in 2 weeks or first meeting of May? Councilmember Mekichuk.
2 things. First of all, this contract was put in front of us by Laurel Provetti, the former town manager, I think at least 9 months before the contract was due. So they wanted us to do this in September of 2024, even though the contract went to June 30th, 2025.
Right.
So Lisa, that's kind of a little bit of the background. And why they were doing it then is beyond me, but they knew that our existing contract would take us through until June 30th. You may have asked for a number in your discussions with the town manager. But I don't think that the town manager has heard from, and the town council have heard from this city council in Monte Sereno. So to get to the vice mayor's point, if you don't ask for it, you're not gonna get it. He's not gonna come off and give you $100,000. And to move on 50 hours a year from 650 to 700, I think that's trivial. I think that gets lost in the rounding. So, I'm not gonna be able to, I could support, if you wanna keep the words at 2 FTEs, that's fine. But I think we asked for the 100,000 in the cops grant. So, you know, if we don't ask for it, we're not gonna get it.
So Diana, because we did discuss the COP grant. And was it presented to the town manager, or did we just kind of gloss over that point, or how did that actually work out?
So the COPS grant is an allocation from the state of California to provide additional policing services. It's not to supplant existing services. So each year with the current agreement, the terms state that each year, the city and the town would get together and, both councils would agree on what to spend that money on. So there will be additional services or additional technologies that those funds would be used for each year. So they're above and beyond the base police, services that they're providing.
Okay, and do we have any examples of what the COPS grant has been used for in the past?
So the current agreement, that will be expiring specifies that those funds would be used for additional traffic enforcement hours. And, in the first year of the potential new contract, 25-26, the bulk of the funds would be used for the initial, installation costs for the flock cameras.
Okay. Could the COPS grant be used for ongoing payment for our services for the flock camera? Or can it only be used once?
It has to be used for something additional. So
Okay.
it would not be used for ongoing, it's not ongoing expenses or operations.
Correct. So we could buy more flock cameras every year, was it?
Every year, and pay more in service costs. every year.
Yeah,
But, yeah, I think we went through that discussion last time, and the idea was supposedly you can't use $100,000 and just give it to Los Gatos. So they're getting the 100,000, so reduce your 1.4 million demand from 100 grand, so balance it out. So they still get their 1.4. But since we can't control the 100,000 for the flocks or whatever, they're going to still get that.
well,
But this way they're only getting 1.5 million from us.
right.
Okay. So that was the discussion we had.
Well, and it says in the contract that we will give them the COPS grant, so
Yeah,
they,
so they get 100, they reduce our.
right. No, I'm just saying, they're expecting 1.5 for it.
They're expecting
on this
1.5,
contract.
and we're saying, since we are putting the flock up, which they're gonna benefit from, because it's providing a lot of policing services. You know, with 50 cameras or whatever they're putting up, that should be at least equal to the policing services. We should offset some of the costs of the policing services they're charging us for.
Okay,
But,
yes,
but I also believe that the captain in her presentation, she said that there's ongoing changes that they're making, at the PD. That, you know, you're not standing still. So you'll be, and there's enough innovation and new technologies that you're gonna be constantly looking for new ways for enforcement. So I don't think that they're gonna run out of uses.
oh, no, I mean, I've seen it used for license plate readers and motorcycle time, and I've seen it used for a lot of different things that have benefited.
So we just say the total is 1.458, including including the COPS grant, not plus the COPS grant.
Okay,
That's my only
all
point.
right, so then we have a motion from Councilmember Wolsheimer that wants to take the contract as is.
I'll
So we
second
need to have a
motion.
second on that,
I'll second that.
okay? And we'll need to have a roll call vote on this.
Yes, Councilmember Wolsheimer,
Yes.
Councilmember Shannon,
Yes,
Councilmember Makachuk,
Nay.
Vice Mayor Lahey,
Nay,
and Mayor Craig.
Yes,
Okay, motion carries with 3 and 2 noes.
okay. Thank you very much, everybody. All right, we are on item number 7, authorize the city of Monte Sereno to join with other public agencies as a shareholder of the California Asset Management Trust, a joint commerce authority specifically known as an investor in the JPA. And I think we have a staff report / presentation for that.
Yes, thank you. If I could make one note, we can certainly circle back to it, but there was item number 5, the public hearing on the agenda, but we could just take these 2 out of order. I just don't want.
Oh,
to
okay, yes,
Later.
yes.
So, we have Drew Corbett, our finance consultant here, and I'm gonna go present the staff report. And we also have Kyle Tanaka on the Zoom, and he is with the camp fund and can answer any questions that the council might have about that. So.
Good evening, Mayor Craig, members of the City Council, Drew Corbett, DKG Consultants. Here to discuss the investment of city funds in the California Asset Management Trust. So, by way of background, as of the last close, last year-end close for the city, there were over $6 million in cash and investments. The day-to-day funds, so the operational funds in the city currently are being held in non-interest bearing accounts. Idle funds are being invested in treasuries through Wells Fargo. So currently there's approximately $4.5 million currently invested through Wells Fargo in treasuries. The last reinvestment occurred in March with a maturity date of January 2026 at a rate of just under 3.8%. Wells informed the city, I think in February or early March, that it would no longer invest on behalf of the city. When the next maturity comes due, which I believe is this month, it will not be reinvested by Wells. And so continuing to invest in treasuries, Wells was kind of providing a bit of a unique services by handling the investments and serving as the custodian. So if the city were to want to continue to do this and just invest in its idle funds in treasuries, it would need to engage a broker dealer as well as a custodial bank. And I did, talk to some folks on behalf of the city, and there's some uncertainty based on the size of the city's portfolio, if this would even be feasible, if you would be able to find a broker dealer who would take a portfolio of this size. So next slide. So we did.
I didn't ask a question. Did Wells Fargo indicate why they don't want to do this anymore?
They did not, but we are not charged any investment fees for this account. So my assumption is it doesn't make them enough money.
It wasn't just,
So they have offered a managed account, but these unmanaged accounts, they're not supporting.
Yeah, this is probably a legacy agreement that someone took a look at and said, this doesn't make sense for us to continue to do.
We're too small.
Yeah. So did some analysis, just stepping back in terms of what are allowed. So investments in California are regulated by the California Government Code, Section 53601, and the city's investment policy mirrors government code. Some cities have additional provisions above and beyond government code, but the city's mirrors the California Government Code, and the objectives of the city's investment portfolio in order are safety of principal, liquidity, and yield. And so according to government code, allowable investments are restricted accordingly. So as an example, public agencies are not allowed to invest in equities. So there was some evaluation of potential alternatives for the city's Wells Fargo account. One was to continue to try to invest in treasuries. As I mentioned, that may be a bit difficulty as there's uncertainty as to whether it would be able to find a broker dealer to take that business. We looked also into investing funds in the California Local Agency Investment Fund, or LAIF. And we also looked at investing funds in the California Asset Management Program, or CAMP. And the recommendation is to become a shareholder of the California Asset Management Trust. You can join the trust as an investor or as a participant. If you're a participant, you are a member, a voting member, and have an opportunity to be on the board. The most expeditious way forward, given where you are with Wells Fargo, is to join as an investor through a resolution tonight. And you could become a participant at a later date after evaluating how the city likes being a part of the trust. And then we would work to transition the investments to CAMP. There's two sides to what the city could do in CAMP. There's a sort of a day-to-day operational portfolio that's a pooled investment tool, works very much like the California Local Agency Investment Fund. This will be a more effective management of your day-to-day funds. You'd be able to earn interest but maintain liquidity. The yield on CAMP right now is currently outperforming LAIF. And then you'd be able to invest your idle funds similar to what you're doing now. You're investing right now in all treasuries. In the CAMP term portfolio, you'd be able to invest those idle funds in a variety of other pooled investments that are compliant with government code, similar to what you're doing now, up to 1 year. And the earnings right now, if you were to invest your funds in CAMP out to January 2026, which is what your longest maturity is now, that's currently outperforming that last treasury that you most recently reinvested in. So with that concludes the presentation. Happy to take any questions. And as Diana mentioned, we have Kyle Tanaka from PFM Asset Management on the line as well, who can answer any technical questions about either the term fund or the pooled fund.
Do we have any questions? Yes, Councilmember Lai.
Thank you for the presentation. Couple of questions. One is, the return, is that after the management fees are taken out?
Yes,
There's a net 4.09% return.
correct.
How much are the management fees?
Kyle, I want to say they were 10 basis points, but Kyle, can you answer that?
And also, just because I don't think a lot of people understand basis points, could you make it a decimal percentage for us?
0.1%.
Okay.
Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong.
1/100% for a basis point. And sorry about that. I was having some technical difficulties. Tried to pull up another screen and everything went shut down on me. So I apologize for that. I think I heard the beginning part of that question about the management fees on the fund. Did that get addressed through? I apologize.
The earnings or the yield is presented net of fees, but what are your management fees was the second question.
Okay, so yeah, that's correct on the first. For the second part of that question, it's based on the pool's AUM for the CAMP pool. So currently it's right around 9.3 basis points. I usually tell folks to round up to 10 basis points on the pool. On the CAMP term option, that can vary day to day, but per term transaction, similar to like the CD, how Drew outlined it, would be about 7 to 8 basis points. We can charge up to 15, but we have not done so yet with the program.
Thank you. And to follow up on that is, are you investing only in treasuries and bonds and CDs, or what are you investing in? You're not buying anything though.
Yes. So since CAMP is a public agency as well, it's a joint powers authority, it's limited to the authorized investments in California Government Code 53601. So we do have exposure to credit or commercial paper, not as much asset backed right now, but it does have the abilities to go within California Government Code.
Can you explain very briefly what the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Authority document in here? And is that something you added for us? Thank you. So was it just to give us an idea of another agency that has used CAMP and just so that people could see the kind of returns that this agency is getting?
Yes, that document was added to the agenda at the request of Councilmember Mekachek.
Okay. So
Can I answer that
yes,
question?
yeah, please do.
So the reason why I wanted to include that is that Silicon Valley Clean Energy, we moved to CAMP several years ago. And when, I think it was the end of June 2023, when we changed our investment policy to allow us to invest in T-bills. And that's when we became a legacy. It was less than 2 years ago that we went and opened the account with Wells Fargo. And we thought that we could just invest and say, keep rolling these over. And we laddered it out at 90 days, built a 90-day ladder, and then just kept rolling because interest rates were going up then. And then when interest rates tapered, then we said, let's lengthen the ladder to 180 days to 200 and, up to 270 days or whatever it is. So that's kind of a little bit of the history, but I was thinking back at the time we should go to camp, but it seemed to be just too complex to do then and as fast as we wanted to do it. But the reason why this is in here is because if you look at the numbers, and they're kind of hard to read, but you can see that camp is next to River City bank accounts and PFM asset management investment portfolio. And that's in it's kind of the second group. So you can see that camp has a good rate of return. And that's the whole point. Rather than having a quote salesperson or an advocate, this is real life from SVCE. And I think that they made a great decision. So I would be supporting moving to camp without too much, I don't want to say it's a no-brainer, but you know what? It's a no-brainer.
I appreciate that. If you could talk to all my other shareholders, that'd be helpful as well.
I would be an advocate, and I would be an advocate because you've earned the advocacy. It's not just given, freely. I'm a hard marker, by the way.
And SBC sounds like they've been very happy with their.
Totally.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Lahey?
So, I guess the question came in a minute. Oh.
I have a question, if you wanna have a moment to.
Sure.
And I just wanted to ask if you could talk a little bit further, maybe Drew, and you touched on this, but about Diana, what you had explained to me earlier about how we keep money in a basically non-interest bearing account so that we have liquidity for our payroll, for our warrant account, all those things. But now we're going to be earning interest on that money. So if you just would talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, typically, part of what a municipal finance operation is gonna do is cash management. And utilizing the pools for your day-to-day is a great way to really have it both ways, which is having liquidity. These are funds that you can pull out on a daily basis as needed, while earning some yield. Ideally, you're still gonna have a bank account, right? Because that's where the checks are gonna come from, and ideally, your bank account is gonna, sweep some money into an interest-bearing account for you on a day-to-day basis. But then having these other options creates just that much more ability to be flexible and to, again, have that liquidity while also earning some money on the money that you're not using on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, actually, that was my question. So we need to keep very little in our bank account now. About how much would you say? 1 week payroll? Or 1 month payroll?
It's gonna vary. I mean, I think, you have a very small staff, so someone's gotta monitor and maintain it. And I think that's why you're in the position that you're in now, which is where you've had a lot of money sitting in a bank account that's allowed you to maintain liquidity, but you've had the opportunity cost. What you really want to do ideally is, keep that bank account at a minimum and utilize your pooled account. And what I see in other agencies that I've worked with over the years is, they're going to, money's coming in and out all the time, and you're putting money into the pool, taking money out of the pool, but just managing that liquidity through your pool and pulling money into and out of your bank account to make sure you can make payroll, make sure you can make those check runs. And also as you're managing the money coming in, like your property tax remittances, right? All those things need to be managed, and you keep your bank account at a relatively low amount and push that money into the pooled account so you can earn on it.
So we will have to do that to manage their bank account. It's not gonna be automatic. Write a check and there's no money automatically comes in from the pool to cover the check. That doesn't happen like that.
Correct.
You actually have to transfer.
You have to
money
manage,
back
you have
and
to
forth.
manage that account, yes.
Good thing we have electronic banking.
Currently, in our non-interest bearing savings account, we have over $1 million.
So we don't need to keep that.
So moving that to the account, well,
How much do you think you need, what's your monthly requirements? Approximately.
so currently how,
Workless, I guess.
correct, so, currently with we have a checking account and a savings account. All of the revenues we receive are deposited into the savings account. And then whenever, there's a payroll or warrant list, we transfer that amount of money from the savings to the checking. So, we could probably transfer, I would say, 90 to 95% of it.
So we won't need a savings account, and it's gonna be a pool account. All the money goes into a pool account and we transfer it.
Correct. We'll still need it for the deposits, or electronic deposits that we receive from the county for our property tax and such, but we'll be able to move them within one day
Okay,
into the interest bearing account.
all right, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember McIntyre.
I was gonna just add a little bit of color to that and quantify it. What we did in June of 2023 was we moved $4.5 million out of LAIF and into the T-bill account with Wells Fargo. And since then, there's been zero cash management outside of those funds. LAIF hasn't grown, we haven't invested more money in LAIF, nor have we taken any money and put it in additional funds into the T-bill account at Wells Fargo, nor have we taken money out of that. So there's been basically zero zero treasury function, if you will, at the city. And you could say that's a bad thing, or you could say that's a good thing. But the $4.5 million is all there. And I think I did some calculations and we ended up being $206,000 better having moved it away from LAIF. So, you know, that was a good thing. So to get more on the millions, like say you could get an average of, let's call it 500,000 times a year times 4%, you know? So we'll get some more money out of there.
Well, anything that keeps it out of that mattress fund is good in my book. Yes, Councilmember Wilson.
Do you know what the total assets are in count? How big is the fund, the organization?
Yeah, so I can give you a number as of today. The fund closed at 21.9 billion. The reason why I know that is because I'm very upset that we didn't cross 22 billion for the first time in the program's history. It's something I've been looking forward to. But really what's representative of that number in my eyes is kind of the just as important of a question, and that's roughly 400 other municipalities throughout California. So it's a well-diversified pool, both from a shareholder standpoint, also in the shareholder type, in terms of cities, counties, special districts, other JPAs as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's wait for Councilmember Elahi to come back, but I think at this time we'll open it up for public comment. Seeing nobody in chambers, I will close public comment for the chambers and open it up for online. No financial money managers ready to give us advice out there? All right. So, at this point, would anybody like to make a motion? Yes, Councilmember McIntyre.
I will make a motion to, let me just flip to the motion. To adopt resolution of the city of Monte Sereno authorizing the city to become a shareholder of the California Asset Management Trust as set forth in the resolution proposed by staff.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second that.
And we will take the roll call vote on this.
Councilmember Shannon,
Yes.
Councilmember Makachek,
Aye.
Councilmember Wolsheimer,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lahi.
I apologize, I stepped out for a second, can you?
Yes, we're gonna go into the fund.
Okay. Aye.
And Mayor Craig.
Yes,
Okay, motion carries 5-0.
all right.
I don't think we got you across the finish line to the 22, but, you know, you have our advocacy, and if we could, get you across, we would be delighted to get you across that finish.
I appreciate that, and thank you very much. Anytime, that you'd like me to come back before council, please let me know.
And if you get you across, that should be worth a couple of basis points for us.
I wish. There you go. Have a good night, everybody.
And I also wanted to thank Brian, because he took the lead on getting our money into the interest bearing account with use there. Otherwise, we were always trying to do it, but for some reason, the pushback was you couldn't do it, so put it in interest bearing account.
Thank you, Drew.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'm right.
Or bank crutches are no fun.
I know. Okay, so I think we got everybody taken care of. Sorry, I actually meant to have moved that item up when we were doing orders of the day and about that. But that takes us back to item number 5, which is to consider introduction of a draft ordinance for the city council of the city of Monte Sereno, amending chapter 10.09, personal wireless service facility and antenna criteria. And I'm sure that there's a exciting staff report on this one. I can't
On the
wait to hear
exciting
it.
topic, there's absolutely an exciting staff report. This ordinance would update and revise the city's requirements for telecommunication facilities, which include cell phone antenna sites, TV and radio antennas, satellite dish antennas, and ham radio antennas. The current ordinance was adopted in 1996 and has not been revised since so it is not in compliance with updated federal regulations. And that is the purpose of this draft ordinance before you tonight. The proposed amendments build off of the existing code with revisions to improve clarity, incorporate new standards and processes where required for new facility types and application types, and to modify the existing provisions where needed to comply with federal regulations. The key changes are detailed in the staff report. This item, as it is an ordinance to the zoning code, was reviewed by the Site and Architectural Commission at their meeting earlier this month. And the commission and staff both recommend that the city council adopt the revised requirements in the draft ordinance before you tonight. And we do have our consultants, Asher and Hannah, on Zoom tonight, if there are any questions about the ordinance requirements. And that completes the staff report.
All right, thank you very much. Before we get to questions, I wanted to see if any members of the public, seeing nobody in chamber, is there anybody online that wishes to speak about this item?
No hands are raised.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure in case that would factor into questions that the council may have. So at this point, I will bring it to the council to ask questions of staff and consultants. Okay, I'll start off just kind of to give us the TLDR of this whole thing. What kind of equipment are we talking about? This isn't somebody putting up a CB antenna at their house, correct? Or a TV, an aerial TV antenna, or an external cellular antenna. I'm doing this really more for the benefit of the public. So, correct? You know, this doesn't take into account direct TV dishes. We're not talking about consumer level equipment, is basically what I want people to understand. This is the big stuff you see over on Highway 9, over by the fire station and stuff like that.
Correct.
Okay,
It is that big stuff. It does also now include what I think are referred to as micro antennas, which could be devices that can be installed on any streetlights or infrastructure in the public right of way that already exists.
okay, so the
Streetlights.
things like the AT&T 5G.
Correct. So mostly
I
the
won't
commercial
use their street name.
So it could be smaller devices, but still commercial equipment.
Correct. Okay, any questions? Would anybody like to bring forth a motion? Councilmember
That's a
Lucky?
basic question. It's like a 50-page agenda item and lot of language. What are we doing that we were not doing before? And what is it that we can do? Can you summarize it a little bit, or have you had a chance to really take a deep dive into this 50-page legal thing, or somebody has opened? Who asked this to be put on the agenda? What brought it up?
This was a
Why is it
pending
that-
council goal from, I think, 2 years ago and carried over into the current year. And I believe it was raised by the previous city attorney with a concern that our regulations were so outdated that if we were to receive an application, we would be hard pressed to provide any requirements on it.
So the rules have changed pretty significantly since the ordinance was originally adopted. And so what this is trying to do is to give us as much discretion as we can, which is not a lot, but it gives us some. Under the old ordinance, we would not have had, it doesn't meet the requirements, so we would be bound by the state law. So that's what we're trying to do.
So I'm trying to get a very specific answer. So what can we do now that we could not do before?
You still are permitting it. There, you really, and maybe Asher or Hannah could speak to this. We still have to permit it. There are some limitations on it, but the state has taken away a lot of authority that we have.
I don't know what that means. What authority did we have that we didn't have or we do have now?
Well, we tried to
I'm very
regulate,
confused.
yeah, we tried to regulate where they could be located, some designs, features to it. We still are doing that now. It's just less than what we had under the prior one. And maybe Asher can give some examples of how it's changed.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Yeah.
This will really let people try to figure this out and.
Yeah. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Asher Khan. I'm principal with M Group, been working on this project for a bit now. And the main changes, honestly, it was last updated before 1996, so there were no regulations really that covered small cell 5G. So if an applicant wanted to bring something forward, there really would be nothing we could point to really have anything to even kind of acknowledge it. So we really want to be able to give guidance, point to federal, state law where applicable, and be able to be aligned with those laws. To what the city attorney was saying, most of this is really directed by federal law. There's not a lot of flexibility, but it's important to be able to have the regulations within the city code, so there's something to refer to and acknowledge this, so it doesn't look like a blank space.
I appreciate that, but that's not telling me anything. I still don't know what is it that we can do now that we could not do before specifically, other than following federal and state law, which you're required to follow anyway.
So as
Specifically, can you give me something?
yeah, so as a follow-up, do we have any say as to where these things go? How tall they can be? Can they be directed to take on the design of a tree, for example? Can we put them inside of a flagpole? I guess, maybe, I'm trying to help you a little bit here, based
And it
on,
depends. It depends on where they are located. It depends. There's a lot of potential opportunities, but we really don't know until we get applications. If you look at the staff report, I'm just trying to see.
but it sounds like with the old ordinance,
It was.
we didn't have,
We couldn't do anything.
we couldn't do
Right,
any of that.
right,
So
right.
these are some of the things we can do now. We can say that we don't want it on the corner of Dave's and Winchester. And we want it to only be a certain height if possible. And so we have some areas that we can push back on for the design and placement, and probably not of the radios or the output powers or anything like that is my guess.
Correct. The technical elements of it they get to. So under the federal law, there are limits on size and things like that. There are other limitations on existing facilities that they are able to increase their size based on a certain percentage. And this ordinance will incorporate all of that in there. Currently, the ordinance we have in place would not allow us to do any of that.
They could basically come into the city and put whatever they want in here.
Yes.
Okay. So if somebody comes in now, we have a very comprehensive set of rules that we could analyze the project request against and possibly find things to push back on that we're not happy with.
A few, and I only hesitate because we've given ourselves as much discretion as we can, but the government has not given us a lot.
Right.
So we're doing the best we can with complying with the federal law.
I don't know if that helped you at all.
I know.
I helps you, but I don't know if you're going positive or negative on it. I mean, we're saying we're doing whatever the law allows, but we were doing that before. And is this giving the person who wants to put an antenna more power, saying, oh, you have to do this because I can now do it? You know, people who sell lease antenna, are they going to be able to come in and, you know, say, okay, now I can put it, you know, when they could do it right now.
They could do it already under federal law. So if they wanted to come in on Long Highway 9, which is public right of way, they could locate in that area right now without any standards. So this will give us some standards that we can impose on them.
That's what I'm trying to find in here.
Yeah.
All right.
Councilmember Wilson.
Does this somehow help us, give us more possibilities to improve cell phone coverage in Monte Sereno, which is absolutely pathetic. I mean, we live right in the middle of Silicon Valley and I get 0 bars in my house. And there are so many houses in Monte Sereno that have the same issue.
I have a worse issue.
I have to walk outside to get cell phone coverage.
I actually get bars, but I don't get any, I can't do anything, but for some reason, something's happened and I can't even make a call now.
So rather than preventing people from putting equipment in the city, shouldn't we encourage people to put cell phone towers in the city?
You could. They oftentimes are controversial and not attractive.
They can put one in my front yard. I'm not kidding.
Right next to the bump sign.
We can put them on either end of the bumps and it'll stop people from driving around them. Yes, Councilmember McIntyre.
I'll make 2 comments. First of all, I'm starting to see more and more cell towers that are camouflaged, if you will. Los Altos Hills has one right beside their city hall that's camouflaged. The second thing is, I mountain bike a fair amount into El Sereno open space. And I'm with T-Mobile and they partnered up with Starlink. And I'll be cycling and where I used to run out of coverage, all of a sudden I'll feel a little, my phone will vibrate and it'll say, you're now connected to Starlink. And I can have that coverage where I would be lost before. And it, you know, it makes me feel a lot more comfortable knowing that should I fall off my bike, I can at least make a phone call.
Yeah.
You know, and I've got coverage. So we don't have to have the terrestrial based coverage because Starlink has it now. Not everyone may be a Starlink fan, but it is what it is. So those were just the 2 points. And I think that this is, we're playing catch up with this.
Yes.
And I'll be supporting it.
As will I.
I just
Yes.
want to comment that it's been clearly a number of years since this was addressed. I'm glad that's being addressed and thank you to staff and to the consultants for getting us in compliance with the federal and state laws.
Well, every year we do find one and we do update it. We got our first one for 2025.
It all makes
All right.
sense, huh?
Okay, can I have a motion from somebody?
I said supporting it, didn't I?
I'll make a motion to approve, which one is it?
Sorry, it's an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Monte Sereno amending chapter 10.09 personal wireless service facility and antenna criteria and waive the reading thereof.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ordinance, we have to work on.
Go ahead, yeah. Let's do a roll call, sorry.
All right, let's do it.
Councilmember Makachuk,
Aye.
Councilmember Wolsheimer,
Yes.
Councilmember Shannon,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lahey,
Aye.
and Mayor Craig.
Yes.
Carries.
2 months. Okay, that takes us to item 8, discuss the council adopted goal to improve wildfire.
That too.
Yeah, we want to improve man, I put bird seed out, it is gone, like so quickly now. Wildlife is doing fine. My cat sat in front of the window all day today, looking at birds. They're out in force. So let's start over. Item 8, discuss the council adopted goal to improve wildfire prevention and preparedness and provide direction to staff. And I think Diana's going to start us off with a staff report.
Yes, thank you. The city council adopted goals for fiscal year 25-26 last month in March. And one of the goals includes addressing wildfire prevention and preparedness issues, including specific items that were included in that goal and are listed in the staff report. There have been several public comments over the past few months with suggestions on different ways to address these wildlife concerns. Now I said it, wildfire concerns. Several in, so some of the options include sort of our typical process of different ordinance and policy changes where staff can lead the research and effort and then provide for any community outreach and then present the items to council. Alternatively, or in addition, the city council could establish an ad hoc committee to work on these wildfire issues. Also, the mayor could create an advisory committee to assist in working on these issues. There could also be an advisory committee created by the city manager. And another option would be for the council to establish a commission on wildfire safety, which would be similar to the Better Streets Commission or the Site and Architectural Commission. The difference in these options is that the ad hoc committee or any advisory committee that may be established by the mayor or the city manager would not be subject to the Brown Act requirements for open meetings. However, a commission would be subject to that act and would require open and publicly noticed meetings and would have a staff liaison assigned to the commission. If that option were chosen, it is likely that additional consulting services would be needed to provide adequate staffing resources to the commission. So staff does recommend that the council decide if a committee is needed. If so, what type of a committee or commission should be established to work on these wildfire issues over the next year and potentially beyond. If the council doesn't want to establish an ad hoc committee of the council members or a commission, an advisory committee to either the mayor or the city manager would be established by those individuals and not by the council themselves. A little Brown Act issue to make sure we stay in compliance with. And that completes the staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just add a little bit here. Staff has already been working really hard on this and they have already taken a number of steps that we have discussed over the past few months. So this isn't the beginning of this. This is really a continuation of it, but we did have a goal that said we're going to actually dedicate an entire agenda item to talking about this. And especially being able to form some type of a citizen committee so that they can bring their concerns and their ideas to the city. And I think what I'd like to try to focus on is what the best way is to do that. And we will also be having an agenda item similar to this multiple times this year. And we'll probably discuss a certain aspect of our overall goal during these different agenda items. We'll try to have one around once a quarter. So kind of, I'm trying to steer it that way if everybody's satisfied with that. And see if we can't focus tonight on what type of advisory or commission we would like to set up. Councilmember Wolsheimer.
I would like to share some, hopefully good news with you.
Okay,
A couple of weeks ago, I was invited and agreed to join the Wildfire Advisory Group, which currently consists of members from Los Gatos, now Monte Sereno, and Saratoga. The Wildfire Advisory Group provides advice to the mayors on critical wildfire initiatives, their priority and cost estimates for development and implementation. They will cover evacuation planning, vegetation management, residential defensible space and home hardening, communication, education, and insurance. So it's a very wide net. The members are currently Matt Hughes, Los Gatos Mayor, Mary Badam, Los Gatos Council Member, several people from Firewise, somebody from the Santa Clara County Fire Department, Red Cross member, see Chuck Page, Saratoga Vice Mayor, and several CERT members. The meetings are open to anybody. This is a advisory group. It's not a Brown Act group. All the cities have limited their participation to 1 or 2 members. So it's not covered by the Brown Act. We can basically say and do whatever we want. The group is informally led by a Los Gatos resident, Rob Stump, who's very active. And there's a lot of documentation already. The group has worked since late March, early April, and meetings are scheduled through the end of June. And what I will do is I will share documents from the group as they become available. So there already is an informal advisory group.
okay. So then, do you think that we need to put further effort into having a Monte Sereno specific group?
I would probably say no, because anybody from Monte Sereno can join the meetings and express their thoughts and ideas and recommendations. So to me, it probably doesn't make sense to have 2 groups, although there already used to be an informal Monte Sereno group
Yes,
with 5 or 6 people. And we actually, Rob Stump and I agreed to have a joint meeting between that group and the one that was created initially by Los Gatos.
okay, great. Councilmember Michalchuk.
I know that you're active in the community on the Monte Sereno community on wildfire safety. And if you could continue those informal activities, but yet funnel them up to the advisory committee that's in place, that's the non-Brown Act, and then periodically report back to council, I think that would be a win all the way around, because I know that Mayor Hudis and the other folks in Los Gatos are highly motivated and very knowledgeable about making sure that they look at this in a very pragmatic, analytical, and effective structure. They're not sort of one-offing this, you know, and I'm absolutely delighted that you're able to connect with them. So, but I do think that we owe our residents some sort of reporting, that if you could do that, and I don't know, I'll look to our attorney if that would be acceptable, and so that's one question. Then my other one is, I see Chuck Page is on there. Was he actually appointed by Saratoga City Council, or does he just does it?
He stepped up,
Okay,
he put up his hand and he joined,
okay, which is what you did.
which is what I did.
Okay, so we don't have to do
That's how
that.
this group works.
Yeah. Okay,
Very informal, non-official.
I'd like to join that group also. If you can send me whatever information you can to make the next meeting.
Yeah.
But I think, that's a good group to have, and it's great, everybody, all the cities are coordinating it, it's like a grassroots movement of itself. But Monsignor still needs to keep track of it.
Yes,
As a city
oh,
council,
definitely.
as a city council, and, you know, whether we do another committee or not, based on what this may end up becoming a committee by itself. But we do need to keep track of it. I still, there was a couple of things on the. The strategy goals, I think, Diana picked up all the stuff we talked about pretty much. I wanted to add something, sentence or some words here and there. If I can do that. On, for example, on C, it says work with Saratoga, Los Gatos. And elected officials to coordinate efforts to reduce fire hazard over I-9. I would add, and elected officials and public agencies like the fire department or other department to reduce fire hazards, risk on Highway 9, and to formulate evacuation plans. I think that might be helpful. If we can add that on number C, then on number D, we say consider requiring any eucalyptus trees that are property removed. Can we expand that on not just eucalyptus trees, but to also other fire hazard trees? Let's leave those in already. Well, I have Mike, I guess. Thank you. Okay. But I would definitely like advice, and thank you, Dr. Vishal, for doing that. And you guys have taken a good lead on that.
Yeah, and I know that the West Valley mayors and managers are very appreciative of their efforts also. They talked about their.
And I agree with you, we should have our Monte Sereno residents, we give them the opportunity to speak up also here in the council.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, their input is always welcome.
I have just a couple
Yes.
of, probably more comments really than questions, but the first one being, it sounds like that the people who have come here and spoken, people that you're certainly familiar with, that have a lot of concerns about our fire safety, they're already aware of this group, and then they're made aware when the meetings are, so they can
Yes.
attend.
Yeah, actually, one of them attended the meeting last week while I was out traveling, so.
Yeah, I mean, clearly they were asking us to take some sort of
Yeah,
action, and here's something that they can participate in, which makes.
I've
me-
shared all the documentation with them that I have. It's all very open. It's all, and anybody can read it. Anybody has access, anybody.
Great, and I think this is such a great solution because it does incorporate the nearby cities and towns, since
Yeah.
we are not our own little microcosm. And it affects all of us if there's gonna be a fire in the area.
Yeah, it's really a very wide net that they're casting. One of the very exciting things is somebody's going to work with Google Research to do a evacuation simulation. Computer simulation, with two baselines, one October through May, which is regular traffic. And then they also want to simulate a disaster on a Saturday afternoon when there's beach traffic.
I'm very interested to see.
How long does it take to get all the cars out? They're going to work with Google Research, and Google has done that with a city in the North Bay. They did a very extensive search.
So that's something that I've talked to Diane about, and she was going to look at it. Do you think we should hold off and because she was going to work with them group on something like this?
Correct. So as part of our general plan update, the safety element portion of the general plan is required to address, is required to identify evacuation routes and to have policies to maintain those routes. There really isn't, at a minimum, there isn't a lot of action that's required by the state regulations in the general plan. Of course, you know, we certainly want to consider more options in the general plan for that. So one item that our consultant is working on is they are working with a traffic consulting group who did the evacuation simulations for Mill Valley in the North Bay, and will provide a cost estimate for that it would be in addition to the current cost for the general plan project, so when we have that, we would bring it to council for consideration. We would also, discuss with the other cities and now with this information with that group and see where we don't want to duplicate or where others may want to join the effort.
That's a perfect example of something that Monte Sereno cannot do by itself, because we have 1,200 houses, let's say 1,200 cars have to evacuate. Will be overwhelmed by 12,000 cars from Los Gatos, so, and Saratoga and Cupertino will all have to evacuate at the same time, so we cannot do this in the vacuum.
And something like this would be acceptable, or does it have to come from a accredited consulting group or something like that versus this one being more of a ad hoc type? Although it's coming from a very reputable source.
So the evacuation route modeling is not a requirement of the general plan, so it would be something that we council.
It would just
would
be
consider.
extra what we're doing.
Correct, so it's up to the
Okay.
council. Which route to take.
Okay. I mean, I think we should hold off engaging with them until we see the results of what this group is working on. Although I would be curious how much they're gonna charge us. Just, it'd be interesting. Just to compare.
Sounds like the Google one is the free service that they're doing, like a public service kind of thing.
I think when they did it before, they saw it as a research project, so I think they paid for it, provided the resources. So,
I'll be very interested in seeing that,
to
the
be-
results of that, to be continued.
continues.
Okay, the other thing that, we'll discuss in later versions of this meeting are going to be, I just did what you did and I forgot what I was gonna say. So instead of stalling, I'm just gonna say I forgot. I guess I will say, are there any other comments anybody has about this or any other direction that they would like to give staff? Okay, seeing none, then I think I will move on from this agenda item. And probably during council member comments, I'll think of what I was gonna say. So this takes us to the city manager's report. So consider and accept the city manager's quarterly report covering January 1 through March 31.
Thank you, and the staff report does include several items of interest to the community as well as different efforts that staff has been making over the last quarter, the first quarter of this calendar year. So I will highlight just a couple of items. First is similar, adding on to the last item and what we were talking about with the safety element and the evacuation routes. Our consultant who is working on the general plan update has been able to revise the schedule to prioritize the safety element and break that piece out and bring that portion for discussion and review by the council ahead of the rest of the general plan element. The purpose of that would be to address the evacuation routes, emergency operation and hazard mitigation sooner. The full general plan schedule would have the full general plan adopted in summer of 2026. With this revised schedule, the safety element is expected to be brought to council this fall for adoption. And then prior to that, we will have some public and open meetings to discuss the issues and get feedback from council and the community. Secondly, staff has submitted a grant application to Silicon Valley Clean Energy. They are offering a competitive decarbonization grant right now. The project that was submitted would install photovoltaic panels and battery backups on the City Hall building. And the grants awards should be announced on April 25th. So we can keep our fingers crossed until then.
Do you know how much that is?
We estimated $95,000.
Thank you.
So we did get a couple of estimates from solar contractors. And then added about a third onto that cost for the prevailing wage requirements that would be required for a public project.
Does that include batteries also?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So would that take City Hall off the grid then, or would we still be hooked up?
We would still be hooked up, but it would be the majority of our daily use. We would need to figure out, we didn't get all the details, we would need to figure out with the contractor we're awarded, you know, how many batteries make sense. And then, of course, and there are provisions from Silicon Valley Clean Energy, so we would have to clarify with them, to keep the generator that we currently have as an emergency backup if we run through all the battery power also.
So if we lose power, the batteries kick on, if the batteries start to get to a certain level, the generator kicks on.
Correct.
Okay,
For the batteries turn you on at night, I guess.
So the batteries would be used during the event of a power outage for sure, but also they can provide the sort of daily usage to reduce power during peak demands or other times also to reduce our PG&E costs.
but it's not meant to keep the facility running overnight.
Correct.
Okay,
And lastly, another grant that the city had been awarded, it is a 2018 Parks Bond Act grant. The city was awarded approximately $180,000, and that was for the community center remodel project. So we had the grant from SBCE and this grant from the state for that project. As the community center remodel is not moving forward, staff has worked with the staff at the state and have received approval to reallocate these grant funds to our stormwater infrastructure project that we were required to do for our stormwater regulations. That project would redo some landscaping and asphalt along the frontage of City Hall. If we incorporate some park type features, benches, maybe a few more trees, depending on the cost, possibly a shade structure, the $180,000 grant could go towards that project. And
don't
so
put too much shade in, we'll have solar panels.
that's true. Or a solar, maybe a solar
Yeah.
pavilion. And currently in the budget, we do have $125,000 set aside for that project. So hopefully this grant will save us some money on that too. Staff's goal is to get that project plans completed and the bidding for that project done by the end of this year. And that was all I had to go forward with.
Okay, thank you very much. And this takes us to our committee and commission. Yeah, sure.
I'm looking at your building department permits. So we're down from last year, so is that just a blip or do we expect to get more permits?
I do think it's kind of a blip of when permits were issued. We have been quite busy on the building permit side. We do have 5 projects that are going to be going to Site and Architectural Commission next month at their meeting. So I think there will be new houses that will be coming into the building permits down the line. So I think it's a function of the time of year.
Yeah, there's some humongous houses that are going up. I think. And there's some Ethan and Carl also, I guess, I think my house is a little problem that comes in, and has some serious amount. But what I'm thinking at building permit revenue is less, except although inspection completed is higher.
So the
and
revenue,
the construction valuation is also less. Is that because maybe there are any user?
so the valuation and the revenue are both based on the issued permit date. So the first line, the building permits issued are down a little bit. So then there's a little less valuation of the construction and there's a little bit less revenue because the revenue and the valuation are based on when the permit is issued.
Okay.
And then the inspections are obviously after the permit's issued for several months.
Okay, thank you very much. Committee commission reports, Councilmember Thank you, Chuck. Would you like to start us off?
Sure, there was a VTA Policy Advisory Committee meeting last week. And they're working on having a longer term vision. They keep on doing this every few years, so they're going into a new cycle of that. And as well, there's grant opportunities available, and I think that we're missing out on some grant opportunities, but we'll get there soon. And then as well, Silicon Valley Clean Energy met, and there's 5 talking points that I've got. First of all, we had a significant discussion on regionalization in outside of California, regionalization, the benefits of that. And we agreed that we're supporting Senator Becker's SB 540 bill. So I don't want to get into the details of that, but it's all good. And then we also, the board agreed to fund the Hanford area residents with $1.5 million for local initiatives where there's a natural gas peaker plant, but also battery storage that has been put in there. So basically, it's outside of Santa Clara County, but we're trying to, the Silicon Valley Clean Energy is trying to help the community there deal with how to make their life better, because we're putting we're buying power from a peaker plant that's polluting the air locally to some extent. Then we also approved a selection policy for long-term power purchase agreements. That was very important to some people, but we've got it. It's a seller's market right now, so Silicon Valley Clean Energy hasn't been as competitive, so I supported keeping it simple and not making it a very non-business friendly purchasing policy, if you will. Fourth, we approved a new energy storage agreement with NextEra. The 5th is kind of interesting. It's a do-it-yourself home energy toolkit that is available at Saratoga Public Library. So if anyone is interested in looking at the energy efficiency of their home, they can go, and with their library card, they can use this toolkit that has some ideas and things for them to do. So, and then next week, I've got, the 2 weeks from now, I've got West Valley Stormwater Authority and West Valley Solid Waste Management Authority are meeting here. So that's that's our next quarterly meeting. That's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Wilshire.
Nothing to report.
Okay, Councilmember Lahey.
Pass on me for a second.
Sure, Councilmember Shannon.
Okay, so last week I attended, for me, it was my first Santa Clara Valley Water Commission meeting. And a couple of things they discussed, they talked about the groundwater production charges for fiscal year 26. Probably nobody will be surprised to hear the cost is gonna go up 9.9%. They kept it just under that 10%. And of course, this is the cost of the wholesale water that they sell for us to San Jose Water. And then they're projecting similar increases over the next coming years of that 9.9-ish%.
Annual increases?
Annual increases. Yeah. Then they discussed emergency preparedness, and they covered just some of what they're doing to stay prepared for incidents of flood, drought, wildfire, power outages, earthquakes, and then of course if we should have another public health emergency like COVID. So that meeting was interesting. And then I also attended West Valley Sanitation District meeting. And probably the highlight is it was the first of 2 public hearing meetings for the proposed budget. And they also issued the updated sewer system management plan, which is their overall plan for what they're going to be doing. And that was it for commission meetings.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Alani.
Yeah, I attended the Cities Association meeting, they had a legislative session, but they didn't pass out the agenda. They were sent out for the legislative committee with the same day, so we couldn't really discuss that. But I suspect the next meeting will be a bunch of legislative proposals that are going to come up for discussion, so I'll report to you next time on that. That's all I have.
Okay, great, thank you. And I attended the Finance Committee meeting for the Santa Clara County Library JPA, and the good news is that the cuts that have occurred, or the funding that has been pulled for libraries in the state of California, is not going to drastically affect the service of the Santa Clara County Library System. So that's pretty good news. They are in very good shape right now, and construction is moving forward on the new building there. And they don't have a final date yet, but it seems like it's going to be ahead of schedule. And I'll let everybody know, because it's going to be a really neat building. It's going to be an annex building where they'll have a lot of programs for adult literacy, children's literacy, and other types of reading projects and things like that.
Where is that building?
It's next to the headquarters. It's on Dell Avenue. So if you were to go up Winchester, take a right on Knowles.
Yeah, I've seen their sign.
Yeah, so it's right next to it. It's where the old VFW building used to be.
Yeah, I used to work on Dell.
Oh, okay, that's where it is. Really nice. And that's it for me. So we'll go on to council member comments.
I have
Lee?
some comments.
Great, I'll let you start then.
I attended the Santa Clara County Fire open house of their new headquarters, and it was great. It was a very nice tour. The building is beautiful, it's state of the art. It seems like the folks that get to work there are very happy being there, and it was an enjoyable tour. I'm glad I went. I also attended a tour of the San Jose Santa Clara wastewater treatment facility, which probably many of you have been on that tour. It was fascinating.
It is.
It was
It
fascinating.
really is.
I never knew what goes on out there. So, and then the last thing I wanted to note was, to congratulate you on your 2 articles that appeared, one in the Peaceful Mountain Monitor,
Oh.
and then the one that was an Outlook calling for civic engagement. And I know you mentioned it was gonna be in that magazine, but
Yeah.
I think it was something that's really needed, and hopefully you got some feedback from that, and hopefully, no.
Just got some.
Well, let's just keep putting the word out there. So thank you for writing that article.
And thank you for reading it. Good to know somebody.
That was good.
Okay, Councilmember Elahi, okay. Councilmember McIntyre.
I will say that I'm excited and looking forward to seeing how we can progress with our new financial system here. I think we talked about things earlier today, and boy, wouldn't it be nice if we could have a better handle on our budget and what's happening with our costs and that sort of thing, and our grant revenue and that sort of thing, so.
Excellent. Okay, and I'll let you keep going on any future agenda items you would like to see.
I think I'm okay for right now.
Okay. Councilmember, nothing? Nothing?
I would like to see an agenda item, not next month, not the month, maybe 2 months down the road, about paying council members some kind of stipend for being on council. And it could be a minimum amount, it could be just insurance coverage, medical insurance coverage. But, all council members are voluntary. And I would suggest that council members earn their time here, and a lot of people may not want that. And they can always refund the money, but there may be some people who don't run for offices because it doesn't cover any of the costs. But maybe 3 months or 4 months down the road, and it would be not effective while I'm going to term out in next year, so it's for council members who are elected after 26.
Okay, and along that line, and maybe at the same time we do talk about that, I would like to, propose an agenda item if everybody on the council is interested in this, but it's for our civic engagement goal. And I would like to see if we can't pay for all of the fees that a candidate would incur to run for office. So that would include the candidate statement, which I know is, what's the current cost?
3,000.
3,000. You know, I've made that argument and I've gotten,
We can consider both of them, maybe one of
Yeah.
them is left.
okay, wow, it used to be like 1,250. But yes, I agree that 3,000 is not a lot, but there are some people,
No, of course.
I mean,
Yeah.
if my son wanted to run, he couldn't pay a $3,000 candidate statement.
It's a lot.
It
You
is,
know, and then if you wanna buy some signs or do a mailer, I mean, it really adds up.
yeah, there's a couple of cities that do this already. I know some cities cap it at like the first 5 people that sign up will get their candidate statement paid for. But if there's interest, I'd like to discuss it as an agenda item.
Yeah, put it on the agenda.
Can I kind of throw that out like that or not?
Ken, I'm just gonna tell you that, when you do pass your resolution, putting, an item on the ballot, there is language in there about who pays for the candidate statement. So you'll get that opportunity in June of 2026. We can bring it back before then, but just,
Right.
it is something every time you pass the resolution with the election, you always have the option of paying it or not paying it.
Okay, great. Yeah, and it's been an item that's been suggested to me multiple times, and I would like to just have a council discussion about it. And yes, Councilmember Wolfson.
Sorry, did I interrupt?
No, I was done.
I have an agenda item that I think we need to discuss at some point. I met with our county supervisor this afternoon. The topic of annexation came up. And I think we should put it on the agenda at some point, have a discussion about it. The county really wants to get rid of all these small pockets of 3 houses
You
here.
don't
4
wanna
houses.
annex us.
But yeah, there are little pockets everywhere that are part of the county.
I'm gonna pull the reporting from December of 2002 and let you listen to it.
I know, it's a very,
I
it's
know,
another very popular topic, but we could start, for example, with some kind of
It's in the
questionnaire.
no, it is definitely a worthwhile. Just kind of along that line though, I would be curious to know how many properties have been annexed into the city in the last, just by the fact that they were within 300 feet of the city, and they did a major remodel which required them to be part of it. I think in my entire time on the council, only one property has actually come into the city that way. Pardon?
Hacienda.
No. It was actually a house over behind the hacienda. And they were within 300 feet of the city limits and they did a major remodel. So they had to actually become part of the city. And so, I mean, eventually everything will become part of the city in 300 years or something like that. But, houses only last 100, 150 years. So they got to redo them at some point.
But I mean, I've had my whole neighborhood, which is in the county, most of it,
Mhm.
brand new houses are being built and they're still in the county. They've done huge remodels, so I'm not sure where that.
That's how it used to be though.
So Monte Sereno does not have
No, we don't have to take that either.
a council direction to, or a policy, or a requirement that properties annex, eligible properties annexed to the city for a major remodel or new construction. I do know that Los Gatos has such a policy, so they do require annexations, at that point. I did actually email them today to try to see if there was any follow-up information, but one issue that had come up about 2 months ago in Los Gatos for a 1-lot, single-family annexation is that the county wanted to transfer RENA numbers to the city. With each annexation,
Put it on the agenda. I guess.
so.
Yeah,
that-
yeah, it would be a
Would be
fun
part of
topic
the
to just at
discussion.
least
Yeah.
discuss and see where we're at these days.
Sounds good.
And I know,
Opening the can of
No.
worms.
no, well, I'll just No, I won't even talk about it because it'll be fun to talk about it in the agenda. Okay, so with that, I will turn it over to the city manager to see if she has anything to add to her already outstanding city manager report.
I did not have anything to add, no.
Okay. You want to leave too?
No, I just had said it already, so.
We're gonna continue the closed session.
Yes. And so we are going to adjourn this meeting and we will be reopening a closed session meeting we had before the meeting. So thank you all very much for a good meeting. Take a break. And we will reset.